All right. Cool. So we'll get started. Thanks for joining, Luigi. I know we have a small crowd today. But anyway, I posted the announcements in Telegram that we're basically going to be planning on doing 2 upgrades as opposed to just 1. If there's any comments on kind of that plan or the points, anybody's welcome to post them in Telegram. But basically, we're first going to fix the power reduction, which changed the trees into micro trees. I'm thinking I'll change it to 1,000 as opposed to 1 million, so that everybody will have 1,000 times more stake than they currently have. And then the second upgrade, which we'll plan for sometime in August, will be to upgrade to Cosmos 0.36. Gives us a bit more time to work on that, and we have more things to, gives us a second test of the upgrade support. I did bang out this quick little piece of code to sort of do automated upgrading of the binaries, so that you could basically have a almost zero downtime transition. When you hit that upgrade point, it's not fully tested yet, and I think it would be, if people choose to try that when we actually do the upgrade, it would be an experimental sort of thing. We did say that there, in the upgrade, that it's 200 points minus 1 point for every missed block. So the idea is to kind of get it done as soon as possible. I may modify that. I wonder if it makes sense to modify that to just have like a little grace period, like maybe 1 or 2 blocks or even 5 blocks grace period, just if people's nodes have different times getting set up.
I mean, maybe Luigi wants to comment on that. I don't know if it makes sense. Doesn't really make sense to me.
So just keep
there should be like the best
yeah.
case scenario is your validator gets all the blocks, and then if you don't get all of them, there's this
just use 1 point or 2 points. Yeah.
Luigi, does that sound okay to you in terms of like incentive for uptime?
Okay, so we'll keep that, and then we have the uptime incentive, and we checked that out with some other people, and it seemed like they were.
I think everybody's thought that was a cool idea.
So that's the current plan. The main thing that needs to be figured out is like, what is the timing for it? I'm thinking that I'll announce that I'm going to post the governance proposal maybe on Monday next week. This is my current thinking, that I'm going to post the governance proposal on Monday next week. We'll have 4 days to vote on it, and then have the actual upgrade time be on Friday next week.
Is there any reason not to have the governance proposal posted this week?
We could do it this week too. I could basically post it today.
I mean, I guess what we want is to see if we don't get another. Okay, take your time. I mean, I guess one other part of this is the social coordination around maybe other people wanting to join the incentivized testnet. So just giving everybody a moment, like saying we're going to start here. Here's all the process, etc.
Yeah, I want to make sure that people have enough time to get in time to make that governance proposal, because there's 50 points just for participating in governance, and then 200 points for actually doing the upgrade. So if that's published today, our plan is to get the blog out today and get those points published officially today. And then I'm thinking if by Monday is when the governance proposal is taking place, it gives people several days to get ready, and then to actually do the upgrade on Friday, or it could even be we decide to do it the following week if people need a little more time.
So just for Luigi and anybody who ends up watching this as benefit, do you want to describe the sort of like larger uptime incentive, like basically people who've been validating since Genesis are going to get sort of like a small per block reward?
Yeah, we have a maximum of 300 points that you can get, and you would get the maximum basically if you have been validated since Genesis and have had close to 100% uptime, and then going down from there. So if you join just in the last third of the testnet lifetime, you can get 100 points, and it kind of goes down as so people that have been on since Genesis will get rewarded proportionally to that amount of time going in there.
And the other piece of that maybe is interesting to note is that we made an exception for validators that had downtime due to the UATM or UXRN U-tree, the U-tree sort of like error in the code.
Yeah, I think we're going to look at signatures and not just. So if people didn't have,
if people were signing blocks and didn't have enough stake, we'll consider that uptime for this testnet and no, like for this period and no future period. Because we're gonna fix that one in the upgrade, right?
Yeah. So that's the current plan. I think what I'll do is I'm going to post a announcement on Telegram about the timing that I'm thinking of, and the current timing is, Monday to have the upgrade proposal, so that people have 4 days, Monday through Thursday next week, to vote on it. And I might do I'll make that announcement, and then I'll do a poll on Telegram as to when people would give people maybe 3 times to choose from, like maybe Friday next week, the following, like maybe Monday or Tuesday, and just choose 3 times so that we can see when the best time is for everybody to actually make that upgrade happen. And then we'd have it's a very small change to the actual binary. It's just changing the power reduction, and that should be all pretty quick. And then later in August, that just buys our dev team a little more time to test the 0.36 upgrade, because it's just a bit more complicated and requires more coordination with the Cosmos team. And people are on vacation, like, both on their side and our side. So,
hey, Darren, just noticed you hopped on. We were just going through some of the testnet details. We're about to publish all of that, incentivized testnet, etc. Do you have any particular questions or concerns, Darren, or are you just sort of listening in?
No, just listening in. Is that, when you say the incentivized testnet, wasn't that already put on GitHub PR?
Yeah, so we've had a GitHub PR for people to review, and now we're just like finalizing that. And there's also sort of like a KYC AML process that we're finalizing, and different routes for different nationalities, and all that. All like the details of all of that stuff we sort of now have formalized, and we're just about to like hit the send button so that people can go through the process, and we're sort of going to announce the cadence so that if any other validators want to join the testnet, they can sort of formalize that. It's also important, even the people who have been on the testnet, if people want to qualify for the incentivized testnet, everybody needs to like take the time to go through the KYC process and get your Keybase ID linked to your
I didn't include anything about Keybase. That's not necessarily. I published there that we're gonna post the process for doing the KYC AML at a later point.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't include Keybase there.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, all of these points that we're awarding
in that pull request.
In the pull request, it's not mentioned, and I wouldn't say for sure that we're going to go that route. And basically, we can look at the transaction history in the blocks, and we're going to run a script over all the blocks and see who signed blocks. We'll look at the upgrades and the blocks after the upgrades.
But we still need a process to be able to link to a confirmed person.
Yeah.
The action.
Yeah. So we're gonna publish a method for doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. Once we discuss that with all of our legal team and everything. So we're just gonna publish a protocol at a later point, but it's going to involve KYC AML.
Well, and people can start going through the KYC process as
soon as we publish it.
Yeah.
It's just sort of a bit separate from the testnet plan itself.
People can still be earning points. Whether or not they can redeem those points is a KYC issue.
Yeah, basically your validator address will be awarded points based on us just running the scripts and manually checking.
And whether those points can be redeemed for XRN is
it's subject to KYC process.
Got it.
Because of just compliance with laws, security laws, and everything. So
Cool.
yeah,
That's basically all the updates from our end. I mean, I guess it's worth in the community call just noting last week we had a really great call with the Interchange Foundation, and we got the sort of verbal green light pending a formal application process that they're going to be funding some of the working groups that Regen Network is sort of convening, particularly in this case around key management
and upgrades.
And the upgrades working group. And so we'll also be able to sort of socialize this potentially with our validator pool and other developers who are interested. We can sort of subcontract particular pieces of work. So we're going to, the place to engage with that conversation is in the dedicated Telegram groups to key management and upgrades.
We haven't created one for upgrades, but we do have one for WebAssembly. Yeah.
So both of those. So do we need a key upgrade Telegram group? It's mostly been living in the Tendermint Telegram, but if we're going to be engaging other people, we would need another chat room.
Yeah, I'm going to chat with Jack about that at some point, probably next week.
So at the very least, if like Luigi and Darren, there are sort of these sort of open source initiatives that Regen Network is kind of convening and leading and can sort of, there's a bit of a process around that. And those happen to also be the things we're running our test nets on. And Interchange Foundation is supporting us doing that at a pace. You've noticed that we're doing a slower dev pace than if we were just focused on our chain, and that's been a big part of the sort of like slowdown here. But that's cool because it's also allowing us to make sure that we're testing things to upstream to Cosmos Hub and integrate into the SDK. So, and Interchange Foundation is supporting that, sort of recognizing that our approach to slow things down, to be linked with the community benefit is worth kind of, subsidizing. So that's just kind of an announcement for everybody in our validator pool, and I think is kind of useful for the rest of the broader Cosmos community to understand as well how that's working.
Nice.
Any other updates? Darren, do you know how, just sort of like water cooler chat, do you know how Grizz and Hayden got on with spinning up with the Cosmos Hub testnet?
I believe it's not up. There's like there was an error with Gaia last I saw, so they're trying to troubleshoot that.
Okay, cool. Nice. Luigi, do you have any questions, or either of you have any sort of things to chat about? Otherwise, we can.
I'd like a quick question, since you mentioned funding. Like, what are in terms of like the Regen dev efforts? Like, what's the kind of team expansion plan, or how's that looking in terms of resources?
Well, I'll let Aaron speak to that. Aaron, if you want to answer that.
So we're currently still open to hiring new people. We did just hire Ethan Fry as kind of a lead developer. Actually, one thing we did announce in Telegram is that we're moving the call time 1 hour earlier. So it's 7 p.m. Central European time, so that he can make these calls. We have another front-end developer that we've hired, also based in Spain. And we're kind of trying to look for people within this, basically, that have experience with blockchain, in particular Cosmos SDK, and taking a slow process to making sure that we find people with the right experience and that can kind of get up to speed quickly. Mainly looking for pretty senior people is kind of the criteria that we.
And I think our strategy is to have a pretty small core, highly senior dev team, and then we'll also be sort of like leaning on this kind of like open development working group and rolling that out. And so we will likely also be subcontracting specific pieces of work out to our allied organizations, for instance Vulcanize, or other folks who are sort of like leaning in and participating. that we're less clear about, like, that's going to need to be sort of like specific scope and a little bit down the road. So mostly we're focused on just like building a core team, but I think in terms of like expanding when we're at like full production sprint, I think there's also likely going to be some like other ecosystem dev shops that get engaged with doing particular pieces of things, with kind of like our senior team managing that. Does that sound accurate to you in terms of like the bigger strategy?
Yeah, I think it's accurate. I think we'll see how it plays out. I mean, we were considering possibly bringing on, there were a couple other people we were talking with, and Ethan and I sort of are consciously choosing to kind of make sure we are pretty synced up and in a good place with him. And also he has one other person that is kind of a direct subcontractor that is an experienced blockchain developer, that within that team of like 3 blockchain developers and 1 front-end person, plus the people that we already have on team that are part-time, like Claire and Daniel, that we kind of will just try to get that team up to a kind of sufficient level of coherence and productivity. And then yes, it would involve possibly subcontracting or hiring direct people that are good fits.
Does that answer your question, Darren? Do you have any more follow-up questions to that? It's a great question.
No, I mean, I'm curious how it's going to play out, just because this is my first time seeing this firsthand, and I guess Cosmos is still kind of in development stages, right, in terms of seeing that go to production as well. How long is the testnet expected to be?
I mean, we'll be running this testnet until mainnet launch. I mean, not this testnet, but we'll be running testnets that are incentivized until mainnet launch, and our mainnet launch is projected to be Q4, maybe mid-December. And there's some dependencies.
Okay.
We're not like, we're not going to be giving a date because there's going to be code audits and other things that could push that one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, it could. I mean, I think that I got asked this question this week. Technically, I think once we get this upgrade functionality stable and likely merge into Cosmos SDK, I mean, that's kind of the discussion we're having, that we could potentially on a technical side launch. Because
launch earlier, right?
Can I just finish my, so the reason why we want the upgrade functionality is so that we can do a smooth upgrade path, which isn't currently possible with Cosmos Tendermint change. They have to dump state and user transaction history. We want a durable ledger of ecological state. That's what we're telling people that are that we're working with in pilot projects. So once we have that, we can start this smooth upgrade path. It's more the social coordination, and potentially it could be earlier than December, but we're not saying that yet.
Right. Well, I think we have been saying all along that probably on the technical side we're ready for mainnet launch earlier than that, but I think we're looking forward to a nice, healthy, sort of long-form, multiple incentivized testnet period to bring in more validators, to create social cohesion. Another thing is, it's not just for network security, but I'm a strong believer that the validator community, like, we want people to understand the value proposition and to be building their businesses around serving the network. And there's all these opportunities to be part of that go beyond just sort of like providing validation service. And we're exploring that with some different validators, and just kind of giving all of that time to mature a little bit, I think is kind of an important part of the network succeeding. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. Are there any other core features that you're looking as like must-haves?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely must-haves. Whether or not those are must-haves before mainnet, I think is not, like, in some ways the upgrade is the core thing before mainnet, but there's other things that we must have in order to make pilot successful, and to get user adoption. Key management was identified as an early on thing that we need just to have less technical users using our blockchain platform. And in our opinion, it's been something that hasn't been done, has enough energy, there hasn't been sufficient energy focused on good key management at a protocol level in the blockchain space in general to make it easy for early adopters.
But that feels pretty close.
We're pretty close. We're pretty close to getting. I mean, we're having discussions with, we're pretty close in terms of the code on our side. We're also having discussions with Cosmos Interchange about getting that merged into Cosmos SDK, probably by the time they do the IBC upgrade. So it's possible we could launch right after the IBC upgrade too, and that stuff would be merged into Cosmos SDK, which is the current plan we discussed with Jack. And then in terms of our own domain-specific functionality, there's ecosystem service credits, which is we're working on a design for that in coordination with an Australian pilot. There's basic data tracking capabilities, which we've had early versions of. We want to do some upgrades on our current design sort of before we kind of lock that in. And then contracts, like we have V1, version 1, version 2 contracts. Version 1 contracts, the goal is to have WebAssembly contracts, which we demonstrated in Berlin, like proof of concept. There needs to be some kind of making that production ready, which includes like adding the gas metering. But yeah, WebAssembly would be version 1 of contracts. And I think with those things, we could sort of have our pilots running and then kind of go from there in terms of adding functionality. Does that answer?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's great. That makes a lot of sense. And it's exciting. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's all pretty exciting and feels like kind of, it's all kind of manageable. There's clear working groups. There's, we've sort of focused. The nice thing is there's such a strong overlap between our minimum functionality and things that are being requested upstream into the Cosmos ecosystem, that actually a substantial amount of that we're kind of like doing for the broader community and ourselves, which we're really excited about that. I hope that that's a pattern in the larger Cosmos ecosystem of how things get developed. It's a pretty cool way of doing things, sort of modular and for public benefit, and then for specific stakeholder communities. So that's exciting. I think, just in terms of riffing on all of this, where we're at right now, the other piece of the puzzle on the non-technical side that we're working on is making it more clear, making the economic proposition more clear. I think people are attracted to and think it's cool to have sort of like a domain-specific blockchain focused on ecological regeneration and data and agreements. Okay, that's awesome, but I think a lot of people still sort of like have this automatic categorization of ecology as a do-good pursuit, and I think we're working to do better to articulate exactly how and why kind of ecological agreements and assets, and the ability to collateralize those ecological agreements and assets, and then tokenize them and push them between chains, and having sort of like access and interoperability to common registries and not be double counting and all these other things, essentially is an economic revolution that is going to have substantial market disruption and be a big market force and be very valuable, and that the Regen blockchain is going to be extraordinarily valuable for a variety of different reasons. And I think that we haven't so clearly articulated that it's lodged in people's brains yet. So that's another thing that I think during the testnet, it's sort of like it's a convergence, because the early adopters who really need to understand the economic value proposition are also the validators and delegators. It's a very interlinked community. And so, in addition to sort of like this technical roadmap where we're providing these upgrades and we're going through this process, I think there's also a process of sort of socializing and understanding what an ecological asset looks like, and why sort of a decentralized finance approach to that is actually more competitive than the centralized versions that already exist and already are, multi-billion, even approaching trillion-dollar industries, and why that's like, it's a big deal. So that's another thing I have in my head kind of spinning in a lot, how to tell that story, and how to, in some ways, like we'll really nail it if we can somehow get some of our test nets focused on testing the particular details of that functionality that make that possible, that will make everybody can like sink their teeth into it. So, you know, look for that coming up in, you know, maybe testnet 3 or something, you know, when we kind of have a chance to kind of like bring all this together.
For sure.
Cool. Darren, any other questions or
Nope.
comments?
Good for me. Thanks for entertaining those questions.
Totally, super valuable. I mean, that's the purpose of just kind of having a place to riff about this stuff. Luigi, do you have any comments or questions? If not, we're just awesome. We're just coming up to the 30-minute mark, which is where we try to keep the call to. So that's pretty organic place to stop. Thanks everybody for joining the community call, and as always, we'll be, you know, this is recorded, so we'll be reposting for people who weren't able to be here. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thanks everyone.
Ciao.
Great week.